This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening. Welcome to the Easthampton City Council meeting for May 1st. The meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast by eMedia and Charter Channel 193 and live streaming on their webpage, easthamptonmedia.org. Councilors are participating in this meeting are gathering hybrid on the order extended until March 2025, which allow us to do so. I remain both the member of the City Council and the public participating remote remain mute until recognized by the City Council President. Also, for the member of the public, please remove your camera for the duration of this meeting unless you are participating in the public speak time or public hearing. Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. Barbara.
Connie Denham. Here. Salem Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
JP Kaczynski.
Here.
Tom Peak.
Here.
Brad Riley.
Here.
Tamara Smith. Here. JT Terrell.
Here.
Owen Zarrett.
Here.
Please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would take a motion to approve the minutes of April 17th.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of April 17, 2024. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion passes with one abstention. Public speak time. This is the opportunity to address to the council anything regarding any topic not listed under the public hearing. If you are here to participate or you want to make a comment about the resolution bring forward by Councilor Zarrett, this is the time to participate and make the comments. If you have any comments or concern that you want to share with the council, this is the time to participate. Please, we're going to give you 3 minutes to talk to the council. Please state your name and address for the record. And please go to the podium.
Hi, my name is Kathy Wazinski. I live on Overlook Drive. I wanted to thank the Rules Committee for the recommendation that they made regarding the Pledge of Allegiance. I think it's a good compromise, and I really appreciate the thoughtful discussion and the way that people were listened to. So I wanted to let you know that I really appreciated that we were listened to. I wanted to express some concerns about the Main Street redesign. I did fill out the form, which was, the online survey was very challenging to fill out, and I've heard that from a lot of people. It is feeling a lot less safe on Main Street than it was, both as a pedestrian, I've been down there several times, and as a driver. I've also been observing the handicap spaces, and as someone who has done close to 30 years of advocacy for people with disabilities, those spaces are really scary. And I do not believe that people could actually get off of a lift van if they were using a lift van and using those spaces. There would be plenty of room to get the lift down, but then the wheelchair probably would not be able to get out off the lift. So I think it's really important to look at that. I have a growing concern about the discrimination that I've been hearing in regards to long-term citizens and also white citizens on some committees and also from some city councilors. It is really inappropriate. All discrimination, all bullying is inappropriate. It doesn't matter who it's against, whether it's regarding race or religion or disability, it is not okay. And the fact that one committee chairperson was discussing the fact that they would re-educate people that were opposed to the high-density housing because the only reason they would be opposed is because we wanted to perpetuate whiteness. That is really inappropriate and it is insulting, and I think that chairperson should actually be asked to step down. The high-density housing is being opposed not because of who's going to live there. It is because the water and sewer system and many other infrastructures in this city cannot handle it. There's a huge problem in our sewer system that has not been addressed sufficiently since the 2018 tie and bond report. And we are looking at a potential catastrophic failure. I appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Alex Roseman, Clark Street. So I'm here to talk in support of the resolution to recognize Jewish American Heritage Month in the City Council of Easthampton. The current climate is where anti-Semitic incidents are at an all-time high. I just looked at the ADL. The bomb threats against Jewish institutions are up 1,000% in the last year. And with the recent events of Jewish or Israeli students being physically barred from going to college classes, from Jewish students being told that it's safer for them to be at home than to go to college that they go to for their safety, I think it's imperative for the City Council to pass this resolution. So this will send a signal to our community that Jews are welcome in Easthampton, Jews are celebrated in Easthampton, and Jews are recognized in Easthampton for the contributions that the Jewish community brings to the Valley and to Easthampton. Additionally, I think this is consistent with the values that the City Council has put forth in the past, specifically the resolution against anti-Semitism, and that this resolution is consistent with that previous action. So I urge the City Council to pass this resolution, vote yes, send a signal to the Jewish residents of Easthampton that you are welcome here in Easthampton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jean Powell-Wilson. I am at 377 Main Street. I just wanted to say that it is important to prioritize the strengthening of the infrastructure, especially water and sewer, before we move forward with different developments that have been proposed, whether it's high-density housing or other building. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Pam Hibbard, and I'd like to talk about the rotaries that are in town, and also the center of town where those two lanes are. One is very, very narrow where those loops are, and the other day I was trying to get into that lane closer to the stores, and a truck came and just literally pushed me, and I thought this is going to be it because there's no room there at all. And I know that there was a truck trying to deliver something I saw the other day. He couldn't even get the delivery truck there, and he had to literally try to hop over the fence, over those, whatever those things are called. He had to try to hop over those to deliver his stuff, and his stuff was heavy. So those wire things are really crazy being there. I talked to a gentleman the other day who owns a business in town, and he was saying that the other rotary by where that hot dog guy is, I can't remember the name of the streets there, but anyway, he always sets up a hot dog stand there and stuff. And he said he almost hit a biker coming across. He said he was going to go, and the biker just went right there. And I know 3 other people have mentioned that too. That's very dangerous. There's no stop sign visible. I don't know if there's anything on the sidewalk there, but there's no stop sign where the biker isn't going to be looking down. They're going to be looking up. They're supposed to be looking up. Some of them don't, and that's why that accident probably already almost happened. But it's real close to accidents happening because they're narrowing areas, and then trucks are going over the center, the buses, and it looks like they're going to tip. I know someone said to me the other day, well, that's why they make those rotaries at an angle, so if the bus can go up on top and it's not up, square like this. And I said, well, if it's going to tip, it's going to tip. And if they pick up a certain amount of speed, whether you have that or not, it's going to tip. So there's no room. So my thought is fix the things we have wrong first before we go forward with bigger projects. The people the town's asking for input, and I've been talking to a lot of people about that. And everybody I've talked to about 30 people. Everybody I've talked to says the same exact thing as I'm saying to you. So, and I could talk to a lot more people too, but, I can keep researching it, but 30's quite a few people to say, this happened to me, this happened to me. I've encouraged them to come to the meetings. They have jobs at night, different reasons they're not here. So I feel I'm representing those people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in this room? Before I go online? No? I think I saw Julie. Julie?
Hi, yes, thank you. I'm Julie, and I live in Precinct 1. And I just wanted to encourage the City Council to approve the measure to change the Pledge of Allegiance to both Pledge Allegiance and a moment of silence. I think that this was a fair and thoughtful consideration to make, as both, I'm sure all of you probably rewatched the meeting that we had just last week. You could hear the people's thoughts on this and their beliefs. Doing this will not make a wrong decision. It can only be a right decision by allowing the respect for both people to do the Pledge of Allegiance and to have their moment of silence. I think that if you chose one or the other, then that would disenfranchise one group over another in their beliefs. So I really do hope that we can come together and that our leaders, who are you that are sitting on the City Council, can help build a more cohesive community by not taking away something from somebody, but adding to it. So I appreciate your thoughtfulness in it, and I do hope that you approve to go ahead and recommend that you change the rules of the government meeting to do both the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence. And I appreciate your time, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else participating remote? Seeing none. Communication from elected officials, boards, and committee. Councilor Denham.
Yes. I was just thinking. So President Gomez and I are holding the Municipal Leadership Academy, and applications are to apply for that can be found on the website, and applications are due on May 6th. So just want to make people aware of that. It's an opportunity to learn about different city governments, learn about departments, learn about the budget process, et cetera. It's an opportunity for folks to build relationships with department heads and meet other people who are interested in city government, as well as think about opportunities in the various ways that you can also participate in citywide committees, commissions, et cetera. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilor Sarrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Quickly, this is a weekend of sprucing up the city on the 4th at 8 a.m. 8:30 to 9, meet at the mural by Tandem to help the Manhattan Rail Trail, mulch garden beds and such. And then May 5th is Citywide Cleanup Day. There's a couple places to find the sign-up information, but I can email it out to the council as well after this meeting. We have an item later on the agenda recognizing or requesting recognition of Jewish American Heritage Month, so I won't discuss that here. But I would like to just call attention and some of the work that we've done previously and some of my own work, that May 5th to May 6th is Yom HaShoah, or Holocaust Memorial Day. As many of you know, this is a day that commemorates the loss of 6 million Jews in the Holocaust and 11 million other people who were considered undesirable by the Nazi regime based on ethnic, nationalistic, religious, and social identities. There's fewer Jews in the world now than there were prior to the Holocaust. That number still has not recovered after the extermination of 2/3 of European Jews. I was reading some polls and statistics. There was a poll taken across 50 states with some questions about Holocaust knowledge. On average, 10% of the people in the country didn't even know the Holocaust happened. About the same amount of people deny that the Holocaust existed. 10 to 20%, depending on which state you polled, thought that the Holocaust was actually caused by Jews. 48% of what is considered millennials or Gen Z could not name a single concentration camp. 56% of that same generation were unable to identify where Auschwitz-Birkenau was. And many people didn't realize that it was 6 million people. Most people think it's 2 million. We are aware of, we've been talking a lot in public meetings, and there's been a lot of exposure in the media about the rampant increase in anti-Semitism, certainly over the last 5 to 10 years, and certainly more recently. I just saw, interestingly, that Congress voted to recognize the International Holocaust Alliance, Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, to include that in Title VI. It's just something to think about and be aware of. We need to continue to educate people. The Holocaust is the most famous, but not the only point in history where an attempt to marginalize or exterminate Jews took place. It was just the most, the largest number, but that was preceded by pogroms in Europe over 1,000 years and a number of other horrible events to expel and try to kill Jewish people. On that note, there will be a screening of the Four Winters documentary, which is a tale of Jewish partisan resistance during World War II that is free to the public. And it will be on May 23rd, I believe at 7 p.m. I'll be sending out some information. Because of limited space, there'll be 2 tickets per person, allowed per person. I highly encourage people to go. I saw this at Bombix. I think it was back in October or November, and you could hear a pin drop. It was such a riveting and reflective film. So I'll send it. That's going to be at Easthampton Media. So I'll send out information about that, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any other counselor? Counselor Smith?
I just wanted to announce that this weekend is the Easthampton High School Drama Club's play Chicago. In case you were wondering, there's a teenage version of Chicago that they play in high schools versus the one that's on Broadway. So they're selling tickets for $15 general admission, $10 for students and seniors. And it's going to be Thursday from 6 to 8, Friday from 7 to 9, Saturday from 7 to 9, and Sunday from 2 to 4. And if you wanted to buy tickets ahead of time, you could purchase them at ehsdrama.org.
And they can buy it at the door,
And they can also
too.
buy it at the door. Mhm.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other counselors? No? All right, I will take a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. Councilor Sarret.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we have before us a request to amend city ordinances, Chapter 6, by deleting Section 6.8, loitering by certain minors during certain hours, and Section 6.9, discharging dangerous weapons. This is continuing work by the council, acting on recommendations from the Ordinance Review Committee and then from the prior Public Safety Committee. I'm just going to briefly read the language because it's very short. I think it's just important to know what we're voting on. So section 6-8, loitering by certain minors during certain hours. No person under the age of 17 years shall loiter or on or about the public way in the city of Easthampton between the hours of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And section 6-9, discharging dangerous weapons. No person under the age of 16 shall discharge any firearms, air guns, BB rifles, or other dangerous weapons by the city. Regarding 6-8, there were significant concerns. This is basically affecting a curfew for people under 17. Both the Ordinance Review Committee and the Public Safety Committee in a variety of iterations voted unanimously to remove this. And the police department also advised as well. Regarding the section 6-9, while obviously we don't want weapons discharged inappropriately in the city, this is preempted by other laws and so deemed unnecessary and both potentially repetitive or contradictory to existing language. So both Ordinance Review Committee and a number of public safety committees voted unanimously to remove both of these.
Any councilor have any comments or questions? Anyone from the public want to participate in this public hearing? Anyone remote? Seeing none, Councilor Sarek.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to amend City Ordinances Chapter 6, miscellaneous offenses and provisions by deleting Section 6-8, loitering by certain minors during certain hours, and Section 6-9, discharging dangerous weapons.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend the City Ordinance Chapter 6 by deleting Section 6-8 and Section 6-9. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those one in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. I'll take a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those one in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. Mayor's communication? None. Mr. Vice President, do you have anything to announce?
Not tonight.
We do not have anything. Report of Standing Committee. Finance, Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are in the middle of budget season, and it's, I think, going pretty well as far as budget season goes, but we're certainly very busy. We're going to be meeting next week twice for the budget and then once also to discuss the large number of appropriations that we'll be introducing to our agenda at the end of this meeting. And so that will be Wednesday, a week from today at 5:30. And I think that's just about it. That concludes.
Thank you, Councilor Peak. Public Safety, Councilor Sarek.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have not met since our last meeting. We will be meeting on May 14th at 6 p.m. That's a site visit to review the no parking signs and discuss those. That will be at the corner of Main Street and Union Streets, right next to the Congregational Church there. We will meet there, we'll review the signs in question, take measurements, and then return to 50 Payson at approximately, did we say 6:45? 6:45.
I think. 6 and 6:45.
To review. And I think that will be the only item of that meeting. And thus concludes.
Thank you, Councilor. Appointments, Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the appointment committee just met at 5 o'clock today. So the first order of business I just want to address because I know some folks have had questions about this. We are still temporarily holding on to the appointment process for Cindy Sperry for the Easthampton City Arts. When we last spoke, I mentioned that she had been traveling out of the country, so we haven't had the opportunity to meet with her yet. It was the opinion of the appointment committee that because of the nature and requirements of Easthampton City Arts, we just wanted to be able to meet with that person to discuss what the actual job description is and that they understand what the duties are before making any votes back to the full city council. So the last opportunity that we have to do that is on May 13th to bring back to the full council on May 15th. If we do not meet with Ms. Sperry by that time, the appointment would go into effect on May 18th with or without city council approval. So, just hanging on to the appointment just so we can have that conversation. I think it's good governance to do so. And then the second business that we had before us was the reappointments of Hadel Patel, our city auditor, and Kathy Smith, the assistant city auditor, with term expiration dates of May 5th, 2027. Kathy was not able to join us. There was a family emergency, but Hadel, spoke on behalf of the work that the auditor's office does in her absence. So instead of doing a typical Q&A session about, the person's qualifications, I thought it would be beneficial to the appointment committee to just have Hadel provide an overview of the work that has occurred over the last 3 years since her last reappointment, and to just give us some insight into what it actually means to be an auditor. So I cannot accurately convey the complexity of the work that Hadel and Kathy do. There are a lot of moving parts between multiple fiscal years that happen at any given time. Hundreds of accounts that need to be reconciled, millions of dollars down to the penny. And since she's been our auditor, we've never once had any auditing findings that would result in further investigation. So the fact that the two of them are able to produce this level of oversight of our finances is a remarkable achievement. I just felt that was more than enough. I mean, their work speaks for itself to consider their reappointment. The other thing too that I asked was, just some questions around what it means to be an employee in City Hall and to have the City Council be your employer. I like to remind the council when these conversations come up that there are people who work in City Hall that actually work for us. And, I think it's easy to fall into patterns of just trusting the work that they do because nothing's ever really come up for us to be worried about the work that they do. But it's really important for us to try to take a more active role in understanding who our employees are and how we can best support them. I don't know that there's much else to say. I mean, both of their work over the last 3 years speaks for itself. Does anybody have any questions?
Any councilor have any comments or questions before you make them, Councilor Denham?
I just comment. I'm just very pleased with that department and the dedication and commitment that the auditors department has for the community. They work incredibly hard, not only in, as you can see, the appropriations that are now in here in regards to what they do for free cash, but also the amount of work that goes into helping put together the budget and just having to work with, and they are instrumental in working with each and every department to make sure that those departments are up to date, et cetera. So hats off to them. I, enthusiastically want to support them.
Any other councilors? I want to make a few comments because I have meetings with Hadel every other week. I have to say that what we have in that office is two extraordinary people who they know what they're doing. We cannot ask for a better auditor and assistant auditor in this city. For the past 7 years, the city been growing so much. Departments are growing so much. Department they're adding people. They're getting grants. They buy more stuff for the city, cars, you name it, bunch of POs. Everything ends up in Halo's office. Everything's there. And it's still the same 2 people since last 7 years. Every single department in our city have more personnel, and they bring, except I know, yeah, but you're responsible to us too. I will say there is a lot of money that they deal with it that we don't see. They have to do the POs. They have to deal with grants. They have to deal with the school department. They have to deal with projects. They have to, you name it, everything related to money end up in that office. And thanks to them and the knowledge that they have about the MGL and how we can use those money and those accounts, we're in good shape. So Kathy and Hadel, from the City Council President, thank you. It's simple. Thank you. You guys are doing a great job. Councilor.
All right. So with no further questions, I make a motion to appoint Hadel, excuse me, I'm going to start that over. I make a motion to reappoint Hadel Patel, City Auditor, and Kathy Smith, Assistant City Auditor, with term expiration dates of May 5th, 2027.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to reappoint Kathy and Hadel for that auditor. Sorry, it's too many words here in front of me. For the auditor and city auditor assistant. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Okay, and then I guess just the last thing that I wanted to point out is that the appointment committee also furthered along its administrative work. The city clerk will be receiving our meeting minutes tomorrow. They're all voted and approved. So I just wanted to let you know that. And then there are currently no appointments actually, I'm sorry.
We have the...
Yes, so we will be meeting next on May 13th, 6 p.m. in Conference Room 2, right here behind City Council Chambers, and that concludes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Riley. Ordinance, Councilor Denham.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had I think, great conversation at our last meeting about the opt-in specialized code to complement the stretch energy code. We had several stakeholders who were involved in that meeting, and I think that there were a lot of questions that were answered. But there was also clarification that still needed to be happened because I think that some of our stakeholders are having trouble with the stretch code, which is outside the purview of the opt-in specialized code. And so we realized that, we want to make sure that we are not compromising in any way our stakeholders and the projects that they are working on. So it was a good conversation, but we also realized that there's more information to be had. And so some of the members of the committee are reaching out to other stakeholders to make sure that we are clear about the impact that this has on them, as well as wanting to make sure that we don't in any way compromise future city projects or miss out on opportunities to have grant opportunities that we might be able to have with sort of recognition of being able to have that opt-in code. So looking forward to that conversation. We have not moved forward on the temporary moratorium, in part because of the opt-in conversation, but we'll reach out to Councilor Kwasinski to have that discussion. But in regards to that, we're also reaching out to stakeholders to discuss how it might impact them or not impact them. So our next meeting is going to be Thursday, May 9th at 6 p.m. in room 1, and it will also be virtual.
What time?
6 p.m.
Sorry, yes, you said that.
Thank you.
And that's everything that the committee has to offer the council today.
Thank you, Councilor Denham. Property, Councilor Sarek.
I don't have a report, but I will say provisional to new business if it is moved. We will have a meeting next Thursday at 6 p.m. in conference room B. And that concludes.
Is that room B?
Yes, that is May.
6 p.m.?
6 p.m., May 9th, yep.
Thank you. Rules and Government Relations, Councilor Kuczynski.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules and Government Relations Committee did meet to discuss Rule 5E, the order of business, where it was asked that there be instead of the Pledge of Allegiance being a normal part of the meeting, for the matter to be left to the discretion of the president to either have a Pledge of Allegiance or a moment of silence. We held two public hearings, not public hearings, but public meetings where there was lots of back and forth and discussion. We heard from lots of people. The committee concluded that there is value to acknowledging that we all live in a republic and that we have a federal constitution. There are 50 states. We are a local part of that. And we felt that the matter could best be resolved by not doing an either or situation or by removing the Pledge of Allegiance, but to accommodate the matter by adding a line that says and so that we have and a moment of silence up to 1 minute. That's basically where we stand on that. Be happy to discuss more to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councilor. Any councilor have any questions or comments? Councilor Riley?
This is just to say that when we were at that last meeting, so I know that there was conversations about how city councilors should attend committee meetings if there is a quorum of the full council, which would be that now when there are 5 or more councilors at a committee meeting, that the members of the council who are not on that committee participate in the meetings to the same extent that the public does. So this is really just to recognize we have the privilege of pros on city council when we're on our committees or when we sit on this bench, and to have to engage thoughtfully about something that means so much to us with 2 minutes was so difficult to do, and it comes up very quickly. So I just wanted to acknowledge that when the public comes to us and they are limited to 2 to 3 minutes to speak, I have forgotten how difficult that is as when I used to be a member of the public versus what we do now. So to everybody that spoke, I just wanted to say thank you for utilizing those 2 minutes to give us your heart. It's such a difficult task to do, and I'm humbled by how people engage with that process with such a short amount of time.
Thank you. Any other councilor? Councilor Denham?
I want to acknowledge everyone. I appreciate everyone's comments. And at the same time, as a counselor, as a representative of many voices in this community, many of whom struggle with this issue, and someone who, quite honestly, never learned the truth about various aspects of our country as a whole. I feel compelled to let you all know what it is that you're actually standing for. And no disrespect, but while we are not responsible for our miseducation, we are responsible for being able to tell the truth in the ways that we can and when we can. So there's a few things I want to address first. I think it is important to name the distinction between the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance. I have respect and deference for the flag. My father also served in the military. My uncle was a veteran of the Korean War. I witnessed the toll that it took on him as he quietly carried that experience with him for the entirety of his life. My cousin served in the Gulf War proudly, and I respect their right to serve just as I would anyone. Veterans have the right to have their coffins draped by the flag, as it should be. That is the right and an honor that has been bestowed upon you. I offered the suggestion, even though it was not mentioned, to have a moment of silence in lieu of the pledge at times. I suggested, in addition to a moment of silence, we read the names of members of the community that we have lost. To me, this pays tribute to the meaning of the flag: solemnity, remembrance, honor, freedom of thought, community. It also allows for equitable participation for all to privately reflect on our values, thoughts, and faith. But we're not here to discuss the flag. What I was talking about was the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm over 50 years old. I've been taught as an American to think critically, to be independent. I've taken that to heart. When thinking about the Pledge of Allegiance, I asked myself, who wrote it, when was it written, and what was the author's intent? What is the definition of allegiance? It is loyalty or commitment of a subordinate to a superior or of an individual to a group or cause. Who was Francis Bellamy? He was a Christian socialist. He preached socialist values in church. Some aspects of his ministry we might all agree with. He preached against capitalist wealth and greed and was an advocate for equal distribution of economic resources. However, as a socialist, he believed in a strong central government. In the pledge, he is calling for an allegiance to the government. He is using the flag as a symbol for state power. We are not subordinate to our government. Journalist Bob Greene said, the most basic dispute against saying the pledge is the question of whether citizens should even be expected to publicly pledge their allegiance to their country. The United States was founded on ideals of freedom, and freedom includes not being forced or cajoled by peer pressure into publicly declaring any belief. I take this very seriously. A city employee told me they do not feel comfortable saying the pledge and, quote, the only reason I do it is because I don't want to be judged, end quote. As city officials, we have an obligation to our city employees and to all our residents to create an environment where they don't feel any obligation to express their values, particularly when we are inviting them to participate in or present at a public meeting. Supreme Court Justice Jackson in West Virginia versus Barnett wrote, if there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or any matters of opinion, or force citizens to confess by word or act their faith therein. The pledge, Jackson argued, is less about patriotism than it is about obedience. It is not the content of the pledge that matters, but the act of saying it. Not loyalty to the community, but loyalty to the order. I said that the pledge was written by a white man. I said that the pledge was written for white men. That is true. Bellamy considered using the words equality and fraternity, but decided against it and removed them. Why? In his planning efforts around the 400th anniversary celebration of Christopher Columbus, for which the pledge was originally written, which raises all sorts of concerns for me around the experience of our Indigenous residents in this community, Bellamy communicated with superintendents of education. He was fully aware of their stance against women, their stance against equality for women and blacks. This was during a time when anti-suffrage movements were prominent, and it was the height of Jim Crow. It is important to remember that Bellamy was trying to sell magazine subscriptions and flags and did not want the pledge to be associated with those movements. One would think that after this grand national celebration, when the pledge was read aloud in unison across the country, there would be a shift in attitude. John Higham wrote in Strangers in the Land, instead of immigrants becoming more American in the years following the first reading of the Pledge of Allegiance, America became more anti-immigrant. Higham described the late 1890s as the nationalist 90s. Bellamy made his contempt for immigrants well known. Richard Ellis, in his book, To the Flag, addressed Bellamy's despicable description and stereotypes of Italians and Jews from Eastern Europe. He was anti-Semitic, he was xenophobic. And I'm not going to read those comments, but I have some of them. Higham described, Martha Nussbaum noted in her book, Liberty of Conscience, Bellamy was both anti-Catholic and above all, racist. Bellamy wrote in the Illustrated American in 1897, and I just want to acknowledge that I read some of this the other day, and not one person responded to it. So I am hoping that people hear this today. A democracy like ours cannot afford to throw itself open to the world, where all classes of society merge insensibly into one another. Every alien immigrant of inferior race may bring corruption to the stock. There are races more or less akin to our own whom we may admit freely and get nothing but advantage from the infusion of their wholesome blood. But there are other races which we cannot assimilate without a lowering of our racial standard, which should be as sacred to us as the sanctity of our homes. This isn't just racism, this is supremacy. He is advocating for pure blood. This is what we are standing and putting our hands on our hearts for. You cannot separate these words from the pledge because they are underlying sentiment. They are his underlying sentiment towards immigrants. Is the pledge aspirational? We haven't even come close to liberty and justice for all of its 132 years of existence. Maybe there is no aspiration to be found in forced unity or the bigoted words of Bellamy, nor do we find any inspiration in being subordinate to our government. We've only recited the pledge since 2013. It was a lovely experiment, but it doesn't work for everyone. I think it's time we foster new practices to strengthen our community.
Thank you, Councilor Denham. Any other councilors? Councilor Peak.
Thank you, and thank you for all your research there, Councilor Denham. So I guess what I'm trying to understand, and I want to say to start, I probably could have made some time in my schedule to attend these meetings, so I apologize if I'm asking you to repeat some things that were already discussed. But I guess I'm trying to understand what this particular proposal of doing both of these things addresses. So just to start out with that, I should, I guess, just say, like, I don't actually particularly strongly have a feeling about whether or not we should say the Pledge of Allegiance. I say it. I have my own relationship with my sort of patriotism, but I obviously would have no objection to anybody else choosing not to say it. And there's certainly some things I just learned that were not familiar to me that would give further context to why somebody might choose not to say it. But it seems like the initial proposal from Councillor Denham was sort of centered around the idea that maybe we shouldn't say this thing if it's making some people uncomfortable, or if it has these sort of unseemly roots. And I feel like adding a moment of silence doesn't address any of those concerns. It just makes our meeting 1 minute longer. And so, like, you know, if it was this council's will to continue saying the Pledge of Allegiance, or to have it at least in our agenda to invite people to say it, then I don't have a problem with that. If it was our decision that, like most city councils in Massachusetts, to my best of my knowledge, we would not say it, I would be able to live with that too. But I'm not sure what the addition of a moment of silence, I mean, maybe we just want to do a moment of silence completely unrelated to this, but I'm not sure that I understand the relationship between, like, I don't understand whose interests are being served by the addition of a moment of silence outside of any discussion of whether or not we're saying the pledge. I hope that is, I hope I'm saying that in a way that it's not super confusing. I guess what I'm wondering is it sounds like what's going on here is Councillor Denham proposed the idea of removing the Pledge of Allegiance, or of you know what I mean, like of allowing the president to switch between the two. And the Rules Committee is coming back and saying, well, no, we're going to keep saying the pledge, but we're also going to do this moment of silence. And I'm just not sure. I guess I'm not sure I get it. And again, if that's forcing the councilors to repeat things that you said in committee, then I apologize for wasting your time. But I am just a little bit confused still about what this makes better, the addition of this 1 minute moment of silence.
Councilor Kuczynski?
Well, just briefly, and I'm sure others may have comments about this also, it became apparent that really the Pledge of Allegiance for many of us is a way of uniting the council, uniting the person who's here. Now, for some people, that isn't uniting, but seems to be dividing for a variety of different reasons. I'm not sure that anything that came from the 19th century or the 18th century really reflects the values that we have today. I think the values that were held by people at that time were different. We grow. Hopefully we learn, we develop, and we become better people. I always have seen the pledge as aspirational and something that I think the committee felt would be bring an acknowledgement of our role within the governmental systems, that we are part of it. Our job is to fulfill the needs of this city, and occasionally to advocate to other governmental organizations, which we do. I think the moment of silence started to appeal because for others, or for many people, the idea that we could collect our thoughts, focus on whatever where we were, or bring silence, just silence, because silence really can be golden, especially if we all are sitting here in silence, thinking our thoughts. I know I'll be focusing on how I can bring to this council my experiences, my life, the folks in my district. There's a lot of things that are going to be going on that will help to center, and I hope make us all feel better and present better, listen better, and act better. That was, I think, the idea in general for many of us with regard to the moment of silence being added. It also gave an opportunity to think about, I mean, the president may decide that it's definitely worthy of mention. It was mentioned to us, a notable death. Somehow that he might want to focus the moment of silence in some ways, or he or she may wish to do so. And that certainly makes sense. So I hope that kind of answers the question. I didn't mention earlier, this was a 3-0 unanimous decision of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Councilor. Before Councilor Riley, I just want to make a comment about the motion. The motion recommended by the Rules Committee is to do both, right? That's going to be the main motion tonight. If any councilor have any amendment, I recommend it to do it by writing as soon as possible, so that means now, and pass it to the council president and to the city council clerk, so that way we have it for the record and for the minutes. Councilor Riley.
Yeah, so just to provide a little extra context for Councilor Peak. And actually, I want to just be very clear about this, because I've had people from the public write in and ask questions like, why is Councilor Denham trying to take the Pledge of Allegiance away? So to be completely and totally clear, there was never a discussion of removing the Pledge of Allegiance. The order before the committee was to discuss giving the city council president the discretion to do one or the other whenever the need would arise to do a moment of silence. So where the "and" piece came in, twofold, at least this is from my observations, and others can weigh in if they felt that it was different. So the first was that some people felt that it was an infringement on their free speech to be able to say the Pledge of Allegiance, that some people do feel that this is something they want the opportunity to do. The second piece is that when you give the position of city council president discretion to decide between a moment of silence or the Pledge of Allegiance, then that means that the next city council president could only do moments of silence, not the Pledge of Allegiance, or they could completely ignore what Councilor Denham is suggesting and never do moments of silence. And then I'll just say this is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion 101. When you add to conversations, then you create more inclusion. It's only when you take things away that inclusion is harmed. So by having a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, we are meeting the obligation of people who would like that moment of silence, the obligation for people who want to pledge allegiance to the flag to be able to do so. And I know this is a superficial comment, but there are many times when we have to waste a few minutes before we can open a public hearing. The 1 minute of moment of silence actually covers at least part of that. I think that was kind of the summary of how the committee came to the inclusion of both of them happening simultaneously. Does that?
Councilor Smith?
Well, I think about this one a lot, and Councilor Denham knows I've
thought a lot about this over time. And one of the differences for me is that I'm a sociologist, not an historian. And so when I look at the original reason for the pledge, I also have to balance that to the pledge that is said today, same pledge, but the context in which it's said. For me, I grew up during a time where it was compulsory, where I had to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school. My children grew up in Easthampton schools where they still say the Pledge of Allegiance. One of the main things that I've seen over time as a member of the society, and certainly as a sociologist, is that the United States of America has a lot of competing values to it. And as viscerally felt that some people feel against the Pledge of Allegiance, there are other people who feel that in lieu of recent historical events such as the insurrection, that saying that this is not my intention, that I'm here to abide by the proper channels of communication, is something that a lot of my precinct members have been saying to me. So I want to acknowledge, first of all, that there is no one answer for this. We live in a society with competing values, one value over the other. We're always going to have this back and forth. And I hear what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree that more language always reaches more inclusivity. I have to disagree with that on the basis of really depends on what's said and what more is included. So I think that's really overreaching.
Yeah, that's bad.
Having said that, I also agree with Councilor Peak that with the adding a moment of silence rather than making a decision about the pledge itself, I think convolutes what Councilor Denham was really saying in the first place. And so I'm really, like I said, it's different for all of us in our unique positions on this council as it is for our residents to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance. But unlike a lot of other symbols that have been outdated and offensive, I don't think we've reached that part as a society with the Pledge of Allegiance. And as a result of that, I'm having a really hard time differentiating between allowing for someone's values to come forth and what it means to them as to whether or not they stand versus adding another element. Having said that, I also want to very strongly say that I completely stand with Councilor Denham that you should never be disrespected by members of the audience at a council meeting to be called names and slurs as a result of your opinion, I think is the most horrible breakdown of the public process. And I'm sorry that you experienced that because you're expressing your viewpoints, which is completely your right as a city councilor. And I just really want to say that. I have a different interpretation of the Pledge of Allegiance, but I definitely do not feel that you deserve the disrespect as a person on the basis of your belief. We very clearly have it stated in our public schools that children have the right to stand during the Pledge of Allegiance or sit during the Pledge of Allegiance, and I don't see why we would expect less from someone exercising that right. Again, we're open to different interpretations, but as a sociologist, I respect those different interpretations as well. And that's all I'll say for now, but I wanted to add my 2 cents.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. Any other councilors? Councilor Terrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say my 2 cents because I believe it was myself who brought up the idea of adding the moment of silence with the Pledge of Allegiance at the Rules and Regulations Committee as sort of a compromise, because like Councilor Smith just stated, it means something different to anybody. It might have been written with this intent however many years ago, but it means something different to everybody. And I just don't feel as though, just as I respect Councilor Denham's right to sit during the Pledge of Allegiance, I appreciate the right to be able to stand up during the Pledge of Allegiance. I would hate to forfeit that, which is why I presented kind of what I thought was at the time a compromise, a moment of silence as well as the Pledge of Allegiance. That way it gives people the opportunity who want to say it, people who don't want to say it, don't say it, and then they can self-reflect during the time of a moment of silence. So I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Councilor Derby?
So I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective because I have a historical perspective on this council. And I think Councilor Kwasinski is the only other person that has that perspective, which is, I've been on this council for 10 years not saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And then for the last, 10 years, this was, I remember it clearly, it was, butcher his last name, Councilor Ogilevitz. It was literally his last meeting introduced this. I don't think he ever was able to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I think it was the last meeting that this happened. I think it's fine. I grew up saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I think that the origins of it are really interesting. I appreciate Councilor Denham bringing that forward. I researched it a bit too. It seemed like this guy was an ad man, was trying to sell flags. And that's kind of concerning that we can get so wrapped up over a slogan that it was created by an ad man. I think the bigger issue for me, is like we internalize things. And one of the things, we each interpret things our own way and we hold on to things our own way. I think one of the things that is concerning to me about it, I think it was 1956, I'll defer to Councilor Denham, under God was added, and nobody's mentioned that yet. I think that's, Councilor Riley was talking about equity and inclusion. I think that piece is explicitly exclusionist, because whose God are we under? I think we all have different interpretations of that. And I think that that's an important thing to be said. I don't have a problem with it. I think that the addition of that that particular piece mobilizes certain people to want to make sure that we say this because it makes them feel validated. But for me, I just don't say that part because it doesn't apply to me. So, but I do think that, as we look at being an inclusive community, I think that part could, you come here, you hear people all reciting that part at the same time, and that excludes you. So I think that that's one thing that should at least be mentioned. For me, I'm not going to create an amendment to this to say, no, we shouldn't say it, but I think we should at least acknowledge that piece because there is something inherently in what we do before every meeting that excludes people. So I just want to make that clear. And, I think that we did good things before we started saying it as a council, and I think we've done good things since. So, I think we can keep saying it or not, and it doesn't affect council business. It's a ritual, and I think that should be, said as well. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Any other councilor? Councilor Kwasinski?
Go ahead, let Councilor Zarek.
Councilor Zarek.
The first thing I just want to say is I appreciate this being brought forward because I think that there's an innate value in everything that all 9 of us do. And I think that this has brought about a lot of reflection and discussion that I think has been important, and I think the incredibly well-stated and well-researched information that was presented earlier is certainly a lot that I didn't know either, and it's made me will make me reflect a lot more if this is something I choose to say going forward. I think that this is a good example of taking input and seeing how a suggestion can be synthesized and work for the council and for the city, taking both information from within the council, input from the council, as well as input from the public. I think something I'm hearing here is, this means something different to everybody, and I think that's reflection of the individualism. I 100% agree with the counselor to my right that it's completely ironic and inappropriate for a statement that supposedly espouses this country's values, that we would criticize someone for basically making their own choice. We have our freedom of choice, our freedom of speech is one of the fundamental values of what we do. And if we're talking about something like the Pledge of Allegiance that is a pillar of that institution, then we should respect however people choose to express themselves. I appreciate the addition of the moment of silence because I can't tell you how many times I come to a meeting and I feel like I'm 100% prepared, and then I sit in the seat and I'm not. And there's things that I suddenly realize going on, both from where I sit, from the people around me, from the public. And to take 3 deep breaths and center myself and also try to think a little bit more about what I'm going to be doing is much appreciated. I don't feel strongly either way about what we do, but I do appreciate the thought that went into this. Just from equity's sake, I spent a lot of time saying the Pledge of Allegiance since this idea came forward to time it. And the only other input I'd have is a minute feels like a very long time, especially when we're taught in terms of business that potentially takes up more time from the public for public speak. I don't mind sitting here for a minute, but the only recommendation I would make, also just in terms of equity, is if the pledge is approximately 10 seconds, I would say the moment of silence should be 10 seconds. There's other places, I think, within our agenda where you could ask for a longer moment of silence. That's the only thing I'd say, but I really appreciate this being thought through, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into the recommendation that's before us.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other Councilor? Councilor Kuczynski?
I just wanted to say, I think everyone at this table respects everyone else's right to speak and will fight for their right to say what's on their mind. And I hope not look down on anybody or look askance at anyone for having an opinion different from yours or mine or someone else's. I know as we sit at this table and we look around, on every issue, some issue, we found ourselves diametrically opposed with one of us. Look at the dynamics and go through, and you say, geez, wow. We're opposed, but we're united. We're united in the end, and I hope that's what brings us together. I know when I recite the Pledge of Allegiance, at the very end, I add language. At every single meeting, will add, with liberty and justice for all. And I commit to working toward the achievement of liberty and justice for all, to the best of my ability. It allows us opportunities to be creative, to think, to add, to subtract. Maybe we don't recite all of it, but I hope it sends us in the right direction with liberty and justice for all. Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other councilors? No? Okay. A few things. These rules only apply to the council. Don't even apply to the people who are visiting us. Yeah. I just want to be clear with that. We're talking about a rule that only apply to 9 councilors. The other thing that I don't know if anyone is going to suggest or trying to change the motion. I recommend, again, to do it now by writing so that we can have it here. After the motion, what we're voting is basically to add a moment of silence because we already had the Pledge of Allegiance as a part of the rule. So basically it's to keep the Pledge of Allegiance and adding a moment of silence. If it fails, we still have the Pledge of Allegiance. If passed, we have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Just want to make that clear before we take the motion and before we vote. Councilor Kuczynski.
I also wanted to note that at the very end, there's parentheses on this very short amendment that says up to 1 minute. So up to 1 minute. And I certainly hear that 10 seconds or 30 seconds may be more appropriate and would certainly entertain an amendment to that effect. However, that could also be at the discretion of the president to say up to a minute. Well, we have up to 30 seconds tonight. And then keep going with that. So that being said, I move that the City Council amend Rule 5E, Order of Business Number 2, by adding the following language, and a moment of silence, parentheses, up to 1 minute, end parentheses.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend Rule 5E. Any further discussion? Councilor Sarat?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to amend to make the moment of silence 10 seconds. I appreciate what the counselor said, but I think it'd be difficult to have to make a decision each meeting. But regardless, that would be my recommendation. And then again, 10 seconds is about the same time as the Pledge of Allegiance. So that's a motion to amend.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend the main motion to instead of up to a minute, just to get 10 seconds of moment of silence. Any further discussion?
Mr. President?
Councilor Kuczynski?
I know I find it very difficult within 10 seconds to gather and collect my thoughts. So I will vote no to the amendment, not with the intent, not with the understanding that we could shorten this and set a different time limit, but 10 seconds that's just too fast for me.
Any other councilors? Councilor Denham?
I just say keep it the same as it is now. Don't have a moment of silence.
We're talking about now the motion of the 10 seconds.
I understand that, but it's insignificant. It's performative.
Order.
It's meaningless.
The 10 seconds?
Yes.
Okay. Any other?
I mean, no disrespect.
Councilor, next time when I'm talking,
yeah,
you please raise your hand. Thank you.
Just clarifying, no disrespect.
Any other councilors? We're going to vote for the amendment first. We have an amended to the main motion for 10 seconds. For those who are in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
Against.
Against.
So how many against?
Okay.
Do a roll call.
Yep. Sorry. Too difficult to keep track. All right.
Just 1 second.
You ready?
Yes.
Connie Denham?
No.
Salem Derby?
Yes.
Omar Gomez?
Yes.
J.P. Kuczynski?
No.
What did you say?
I say no.
No? Okay, sorry. Tom Peak?
Abstain.
Brad Riley?
No.
Tamara Smith?
No.
J.T. Terrell?
Yes.
Owen Zarrett?
Yes.
Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 yeses, 1, 2, 3, 4 noes, 1 abstention.
You know what that means?
It fails.
No, it's I have a tie.
I know, but we didn't get 5.
Yeah, when it's a tie, the council president break the tie.
You voted, though.
But that's the rule. The council president break the tie.
Oh, okay.
That's the rules of the Robert rules. When we have a tie, the council president break the tie.
But you need 5 to pass.
I know.
Okay, all right.
I know that.
So would you, point of information, what was the count?
4 yes, 4 no, 1 abstain. Thank you, Tom Peak. Just kidding.
4.
That's the vote.
4 no.
4 yes, 4 no, and 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. So motion fails.
Yeah, or we can vote.
Yep. No, motion fails. Now we have a motion and a second for the main motion. Any further discussion? Councilor Sarat.
More just a point of clarification. You're currently the sitting president, so I could ask you, I don't know how someone in the future would do it. Do you have a general idea how you would manage the up to 60 seconds?
Probably 20 seconds.
Okay.
I agree that a minute is a long time. Yeah. Any other councilor before we vote? For those one in favor?
Aye.
Any against?
I'm sorry, can you repeat what we're voting on this time?
We're voting to keep the Pledge of Allegiance, adding a moment of silence
Okay.
up to a minute. It's up to a minute, so no more than a minute, but could be less.
Okay.
Let's do a roll call, just to be clear.
Okay, let's do a roll call.
Okay, just to be clear.
Councilor
We have a
Derby.
question over
Just-
here?
Councilor Derby.
Just to be clear, that it is just voting to add a moment of silence.
Basically, yeah. Up to a minute again.
Salem Derby.
No.
Omar Gomez.
Yes.
JP Kaczynski.
Yes.
Tom Peak.
Abstain.
Brad Riley.
Yes.
Tamara Smith.
No.
JT Terrell.
Yes.
Owen Zaret.
Yes.
Connie Denham.
No.
5 yes, 3 no, and 1 abstention.
5 yeses, 3 noes.
Motion pass. Councilor Kaczynski.
We have a request for an extension of the matter regarding the ranked choice voting for 90 days.
Second.
That was a motion?
I was just going to say, I don't think we need that long, but.
You don't need 90?
We have a meeting coming up that I will announce, but that's separate from the vote.
You want to keep it in 90 days?
Yeah, I'd like to keep it for 90 days.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to extend this item for 90 days. Any further discussion? Seeing none, for those one in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes.
I also wanted to announce that ranked choice voting, I expect to be the subject of our next topic for rules and government relations on May 16th, Thursday at 6:30.
Let's conclude.
As well as any other matter that may come before us, but
You said the 16th, right?
The 16th, yeah, May 16th at 6 p.m.
Okay.
a Thursday after our next council meeting.
Thank you, Councilor. New business, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. As many people know, we have a request for immediate attention for a resolution to recognize May as Jewish American Heritage Month. Now, I will turn that over to...
If anyone is against it, to pass it to.
Oh, is anybody against us addressing this tonight? Seeing none, I will pass it to Councilor Zaret.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. May is Jewish American History Month, Heritage Month. This was recognized in a variety of forms and finally codified into its current form by George W. Bush, which mixed feelings about that, but thank you. It is basically a reflection and acknowledgement of the contributions in the history of Jewish people in the United States and their heritage. And so heritage means beyond that. I think in the packet letter, I mentioned how early Jews came to America, but what I neglected was that I was talking about the American colonies. A few months ago, we talked about, during Hispanic Heritage Month, that actually Jews came to, I don't want to call it the New World, because someone lived here way before that, but the Americas right after 1492, the Jewish expulsion from Spain. And either a great option as Jews were leaving Spain was to immigrate east to Italy and Greece mostly, but they also got on ships and went to this new area of exploration for Europeans. We talked about then how there's, among many Latino nations, that there's Jewish practices that have persisted up to these days, from Jews either hiding or conversos, and DNA evidence supporting that as well. So I just want to put that out there. I feel that this is an important time to talk about this. I agree with the comments made earlier that Jewish people have contributed significantly to American society. Most of all, it's acknowledgement of belonging and not judging, but also understanding the complexities of being Jewish now in the past and going forward. I don't really want to belabor this too much, but I do appreciate the resident who brought this forward to me. I will say that it is my full intention to, much like we've done with Black History Month and Latino and Hispanic Heritage Month, Latino Heritage Month, to offer some form of a panel in the future. I've had discussions with the library about offering materials around this as well. We should continue to do this for all beliefs, ethnicities, cultures. Arab American History Month was April. That's something we should be talking about, at least acknowledging. And it's also Asian American History Month now as well. I'm rambling, but I do appreciate the council considering this, and I do appreciate the work and focus that's been done in the city around both acknowledging Jewish people, their history, as well as combating anti-Semitism. So that's pretty much it. Oh, okay. I didn't know. So in the form of a motion, I will read this into the record. Resolution to recognize Jewish American Heritage Month and the contributions of Jewish Americans to the Pioneer Valley. Whereas Jewish Americans have significantly contributed to the cultural, social, and economic development of our nation, and their achievements and contributions are worthy of recognition and celebration. And whereas Jewish American Heritage Month, observed in May, provides a pivotal opportunity to honor these contributions, particularly in the Pioneer Valley of Massachusetts, an area enriched by the diverse endeavors of Jewish communities. And whereas following the Civil War, Jewish settlers began to establish themselves in Western Massachusetts, with the formation of Congregation Beth Israel in 1892, establishing the city's first synagogue on Grays Avenue in Springfield, and accounting for 3% of Springfield's population in 1905. And whereas a small congregation of 10 families existed in Easthampton in the 1930s, and whereas Easthampton's Jewish residents continue to offer a variety of cultural events in Easthampton, and whereas the Jewish community in Western Massachusetts has contributed significantly through various clubs, philanthropic foundations, arts and cultural events, and educational institutions, past and present, including the Springfield Jewish Community Center, Jewish Federation of Western Massachusetts, Harold Grinspoon Foundation, Hatikva Holocaust Education Center, the Yiddish Book Center, Pioneer Valley Jewish Film Festival, and more. And whereas the Jewish Federation of Western Massachusetts has played a pivotal role in building and supporting a vibrant Jewish life in the Pioneer Valley and globally, focusing on the continuity and strength of the Jewish people, supporting a secure Jewish and democratic state of Israel, and caring for Jews in need both locally and around the world. And whereas Jewish Family Service of Western Massachusetts exemplifies the community's commitment to service and support, offering a range of social services to individuals and families from diverse cultural and economic backgrounds, focusing on the resettlement of refugee families, aiding new Americans in becoming self-sufficient, counseling, assisting older adults to age well, protecting elders from abuse, enhancing Jewish connections. And whereas the contributions of Jewish Americans have indelibly shaped the social, cultural, and religious fabric of the Pioneer Valley through their communal organizations, religious institutions, and self-oriented initiatives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Easthampton City Council hereby recognizes May as Jewish American Heritage Month and honors the substantial contribution of Jewish Americans to the development and cultural richness of the Pioneer Valley. This month shall be honored through events to honor and educate about American Jewish history and culture. Be it further resolved that Easthampton City Council continues to commit to opposing anti-Semitism and all forms of discrimination, and to promoting policies and practices that ensure equity, inclusion, and dignity for all people, reflecting the vibrant diversity and communal spirit of the Jewish community in Western Massachusetts.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to recognize May as Jewish American Heritage Month. Any further discussion? See, Councilor Sarrett.
I just wanted to thank the resident sitting in the front row who brought this to me. That I know that the Jewish Federation was working with similar language, and that passed in Amherst, and then I believe in the forms of proclamations in Holyoke and Springfield, just to say that this was more of a global effort to obtain recognition for this month. Thank you.
Any other councilor? Those one in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have an ordinance amendment, section 2-6, purchase of fuel-efficient vehicles for municipal use. I would move that that be sent to ordinance committee.
Second.
Oh. Move everything? Okay. And we have a request to amend Council Rule 5C, introduction of council business. I would move that that be sent to rules. And then we have one final one before I turn it over to Councilor Peak.
Take the motion and you move it to the committee.
You want me to?
Yeah.
So just the first one then, to ordinance?
Yeah, do it one by one and you move it to the committee.
And then I move it?
Yes.
So you want me to take the vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'll back up. So I move that the ordinance amendment, section 2-6, purchase of fuel efficient vehicles for municipal use be sent to ordinance committee. I need a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any against? Any abstentions? Seeing none, moving on. We have a request to amend Council Rule 5C, introduction of council business. I move that that be sent to rules and government regulations.
Second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or negative votes? No, seeing none, I will move to our final piece before I move to Councilor Peak. Ferry Street Project Amendment to Easement Letter of Support and Appropriation. I move that that be sent to property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, seeing none, I will now pass the torch to Councilor Peak for finance.
All right. I have some seasonal allergies. In the past when we've done this, I have become a bit parched by the end, so I'm going to do it, but please.
Do you want him to?
No, I can do it.
Okay.
Just please excuse me.
No, that's fine.
This.
Okay.
Some water.
I'm good, thank you. Just as a heads up.
Okay.
This is a thing. Okay. So I'm going to make a first reading of all of these appropriations in the form of a motion, of one big motion.
To send it to a
Send
finance
it
committee.
to Finance Committee and to schedule a public hearing for all of these for our next council meeting.
May 15.
The 15th, yeah, at 6:15. Okay. Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriations. Amount requested, $60,500 to be transferred from free cash to be transferred to ambulance overtime emergency, $14,500. Ambulance supplies, $30,000. Miscellaneous technical services, $16,000, for a total of $60,500. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: ambulance overtime emergency, costs to cover contractual EMS callback for Westhampton. Ambulance supplies, costs to purchase required equipment and supplies based on DPH license. Miscellaneous technical services, cost to pay EMS billing company for revenue collected for EMS. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $197,050 to be transferred from free cash to be transferred to Fire Department overtime, $90,000. Full-time supervisory, $11,500. Full-time clerical, $3,400. Captain's grade, $20,500. Fire medical, $6,000. Fire uniforms, $9,000. Fire equipment, $46,650. Fire education/training, $10,000, for a total of $197,050. The amount requested will be used for the following purposes: Fire Department overtime, cover contractual costs for minimum shift staffing. Fire Department supervisory, cover increases for contract renewals. Full-time clerical, cover increases for contract change. Captain's grade, cost incurred for firefighters working out of grade during injury of captains. Fire medical, cost for onboarding new firefighters for medical evaluations. Fire uniforms, cost for onboarding new firefighters for uniforms. Fire equipment, cost for purchasing new protective clothing for 5 new firefighters, $23,000, and annual service of SCBA's, hose and ladder, aerial truck, and extinguishers, $23,650. Fire education cost contractual requirement for reimbursement of personnel for tuition. Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $17,000 to be transferred from free cash to be transferred to school liability, $17,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: cover unanticipated remaining school liability premium expense for fiscal year 2024. And this one has a bunch of attachments, which is very nice, but, okay. Amount requested, $33,000 to be transferred from free cash, to be transferred to IOD fire medical expense, $33,000. The amount requested, that's injured on duty. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: cover remaining fire injured on duty medical expenses for FY23, billing incurred after fiscal year closing. Request is hereby made for the following appropriation. Amount requested, $600,000 to be transferred from free cash, $600,000 to be transferred to tax rate stabilization, $600,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to fund the tax rate stabilization to help reduce the impact of debt exclusions on the tax rate. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Legal and professional I feel like that should be down at the bottom. Amount requested, $15,000 to be transferred from free cash, $15,000 to be transferred to legal, $15,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: legal costs billed for FY 2024. That's the legal and professional service expenses received and pending for FY 24. Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation: purchase of 2 Ford F-150 hybrid trucks to be transferred. Amount requested, $115,000 to be transferred from capital stabilization to be transferred to purchase of 2 Ford F-150 hybrid trucks. The amount requested will be used for the following purchase: purchase 2 Ford F-150 hybrid trucks, if you can believe it. These vehicles will replace vehicles that have been removed from the roads for safety reasons. Request is hereby made for the following appropriation. Amount requested, $312,479.75 to be transferred from free cash to be transferred to police base pay, $96,008.91, police overtime, $109,250, police education incentive, $22,381.19, police EMT incentive, $6,324.93, police holiday pay, $4,727.63, police sick leave, $36,292.41, police unused vacation, $19,218.72. So the personnel subtotal here is $294,203.79. In addition, police medical expenses, $2,467. Police uniform expense, $9,408.96. Police education and training, $6,400 for total expense of $18,275.96. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to cover the contractual payouts for the retirement of Captain William Kelly and the resignation of 3 officers, to cover the cost of the sergeant's wage increase / new contract effective 8/18/23 to cover a shortfall in FY '24 overtime as a result of 2 officers in the police academy, the attrition of 4 officers, minimal special officers available due to police reform bill and post requirements, and wage increase in the new sergeant's contract to cover the cost of tuition, medical exams, and uniforms / gear for 2 new hires that are attending police academy, and the cost of medical exams and uniforms for an additional 3 hires. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $7,000 to be transferred from free cash to be transferred to city payroll processing, $4,000, school payroll processing, $3,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose. This appropriation will be used to cover the cost of payroll processing for the city for the rest of the fiscal year. There will not be enough in the budget currently to cover it. Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $35,998.45 to be transferred from free cash to be transferred to software yearly maintenance, $28,003.45, equipment, $7,995. And that's replacement of copier for City Hall. Description, there's an addendum in case anyone wants to see it in the agenda. It's 2 cybersecurity monitoring and protection systems. Rationale, investing in an IDS system that monitors all network traffic is crucial for security and safeguarding against substantial financial costs associated with cyber attacks. Fire department software conversion, unanticipated cost. Rationale, fire/EMS moved to an ESO cloud-based platform, and the implementation process was higher than estimated. They also needed access/license to the old AmbuPro platform. Rationale for copier for City Hall. Rationale, the main copier in City Hall required replacement because of a crucial part from UBM was indefinitely back ordered, leading us to without a clear pipeline for repair. To ensure office operations remained uninterrupted, we had to proceed with purchasing a new copier. And there's some things that, okay. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriations. Amount requested, $45,000 to be transferred from free cash to be transferred to city Medicare. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose. This appropriation will be used to cover the Medicare matching share paid by the city to the IRS for employees for the rest of the fiscal year. There will not be enough in the budget to currently cover it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for 11 supplemental appropriation to send it to the Finance Committee and to schedule a public hearing on May 15 at 6:15 at these chambers. Any further discussion? Councilor Durham?
Councilor Peak, well done.
Any other councilors? Those in favor? Councilor Kuczynski.
I was just, did anyone total this? So we have a grand total of all the 11?
No, because it's more.
Give or take.
No, it's more coming, and that answer I think will be more appropriate to ask after send it to the in the Finance Committee meeting or when it came back to the full council.
I lost track at about $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And so it's upwards of that amount anyway. So just wanted to make note of that.
Any other councilor? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes.
Okay, we got it.
Yeah. Councilor Sarrett.
I got the easy one. This is the first reading for a supplemental appropriation. Request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested $100,000 to be transferred from capital stabilization, $100,000. to be transferred to Parsons and Ferry Intersection Capital Project, $100,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose. In conjunction with the Planning Department, the Department of Public Works is working to make traffic and pedestrian safety improvements on Ferry Street between the intersections with Parsons Street and Emerald Place. This funding will assist with legal costs, survey work, and eminent domain takings. I would like to move this to the Property Committee and set a public hearing in these chambers on May 15th at 6:15 p.m. That's the form of a motion.
Second. I have a motion and a second to move this supplemental appropriation to the Property Committee and to schedule a public hearing May 15 at 6:15 at these chambers. Any further discussion? See no, those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Abstention? Motion passes. Councilor Derby.
I believe that's everything. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Any abstention? Motion passes. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
I already signed it.